Welcome to the Explainer, everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're cracking the code on a truly fascinating section of the CompTIA A+ 220-1201 exam. We are diving into Domain 4, Virtualization and Cloud Computing. If you're gearing up to launch your IT career, well, this right here is where the abstract magic of modern computing actually happens. Let's get into it. Here's our roadmap for today's Explainer. First, demystifying Domain 4. Then, virtualization and hypervisors, followed by desktop virtualization explained. After that, we'll decode cloud service models, cover cloud deployments and characteristics, and finally, wrap up with acing the exam scenarios. Section 1. Demystifying Domain 4, the stakes. So Domain 4 makes up exactly 11% of your overall Core 1 exam score. Now, at first glance, 11%? It might look like a pretty small slice of the pie compared to things like hardware or networking. But do not let that fool you for a second. This domain represents a massive conceptual shift. It completely shifts our focus away from physical hardware, cables, RAM, motherboards, and moves us toward abstract, software-defined infrastructure. Mastering these abstract concepts is absolutely critical. It's not just about passing the exam. It's really about surviving and thriving on day one at the help desk. This is the future of enterprise IT, and CompTIA wants to make darn sure you're ready for it. Section 2. Virtualization and hypervisors, the foundation. You see, the whole core of virtualization relies on one absolutely crucial element, the hypervisor. You literally cannot have virtualization without it. Think of a hypervisor as a brilliant traffic cop. It's essentially a software layer that allows multiple operating systems to run on a single physical hardware platform at the exact same time. It completely decouples the operating system from the physical hardware underneath. So instead of one computer running one OS, you can have one powerful machine running Windows, Linux, and Unix all side by side, perfectly managed by that hypervisor. Now, there are two main types of hypervisors you definitely need to know. A Type 1 hypervisor is often called bare metal. Why? Because it installs directly onto the physical hardware itself. There's no traditional operating system sitting beneath it. We're talking examples like VMware ESXi or Microsoft Hyper-V. On the flip side, we have the Type 2 hypervisor, which is hosted. This one requires an existing host operating system, like Windows or macOS, to run. You just install it like a regular application to run your VMs. Basically, Type 1 is for your heavy-duty enterprise servers, while Type 2 is usually for client-side end-user virtualization. All right, let's step into the shoes of the examiner for a moment here. Imagine this real-world scenario pops up on your test. An employee at your company receives an email with a highly suspicious attachment. They aren't sure if it's just a legitimate invoice or some piece of destructive malware, so they send it over to you, the IT support specialist. Where exactly do you safely open this file? The answer? A sandbox. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates why virtualization is so incredibly powerful. A sandbox is an isolated virtual environment, completely separated from your main production network. It's literally the perfect virtualization solution for testing suspect files. If that attachment turns out to be malware and it detonates, well, it's trapped right there inside the sandbox. It can't escape, and it definitely cannot infect the rest of the company's network. You just delete the virtual machine, poof, and move on with your day. Section 3. Desktop Virtualization Explained. Decoupling the screen. Welcome to VDI, or Virtual Desktop Infrastructure. VDI fundamentally changes how we interact with computers. It's basically the ultimate act of decoupling the content displayed on your screen from the physical hardware of the machine actually sitting on your desk. With VDI, your operating system, all of your applications, and all of your files, they don't actually live on your laptop at all. They reside centrally on a remote server, usually out in the cloud or in a corporate data center. So here is how that process actually flows step by step. First, the user connects to the network using what we call a thin client, and that's really just a low-power, pretty inexpensive device. Second, the central server allocates a dedicated virtual machine to that specific user. And third, only the graphical interface, literally just the pictures of the screen, are delivered over the network to the user's thin client. Because all the heavy lifting, the processing, memory, and storage tasks happen back in the cloud, the user doesn't need a massive, expensive computer. They literally just need a screen and an internet connection. It's a real game changer. Section 4. Decoding Cloud Service Models, the Shared Responsibility. Now, CompTIA heavily tests the shared responsibility model, so you'll want to pay close attention to exactly who manages what here. In IaaS, or Infrastructure as a Service, the cloud provider basically just hands you the bare hardware. You have to manage the operating system and everything layered on top of it. It's great for things like deploying virtual servers. Moving up a level, in PaaS, or Platform as a Service, the provider manages the hardware and the OS, leaving you to just focus entirely on managing your applications. And finally, in SaaS, or Software as a Service, the provider manages absolutely everything. You just log in and use the application. Think of your email provider or a cloud-based CRM. To really cement this, imagine Platform as a Service as a totally streamlined construction site. Software developers are empowered to just show up and start building their applications. They don't have to pour the concrete foundation, they don't worry about server maintenance, and they certainly aren't pausing to patch the operating system. The cloud provider handles all of that underlying infrastructure for them, so the developers can focus strictly on what they do best, writing code. Section 5. Cloud Deployments and Characteristics. Scaling the cloud. Okay, let's test your knowledge with a scenario straight out of the CompTIA playbook. Imagine multiple different gaming companies, all operating in the same industry sector. They want to share a massive, high-performance cloud infrastructure to host their servers, but naturally, none of them want to bear the astronomical cost all by themselves. So, what specific cloud deployment model do they use? The answer? A community cloud. This is a highly specific deployment where multiple organizations with similar goals or compliance needs, say several hospitals or, in our case, several gaming companies, pool their money and resources together to form a shared cloud system. And this is distinctly different from a private cloud, which is exclusively owned and used by just one single organization, and a public cloud, like Amazon AWS, which is totally open to absolutely everyone.
Now, regardless of exactly how you deploy it, true cloud computing has these core characteristics. First, we have rapid elasticity. Think of this one like a giant rubber band. If your company's website gets a massive spike in traffic in the morning, the cloud automatically stretches and expands to give you more RAM and CPU. And at night, it contracts to save you money. We also have multi-tenancy, meaning multiple customers are sharing the exact same physical hardware but are kept securely separated from one another. Add in metered utilization, where you literally only pay for what you use, high availability to prevent annoying downtime, and seamless file synchronization across all your devices, and you have the whole shebang.
Section 6. Acing the exam scenarios, PBQs, and acronyms. 675. That right there is the magic number. You need a passing score of 675 out of 900 to conquer the Core 1 exam. And you've got a strict 90-minute time limit to get through a maximum of 90 questions. Doing the math, that means you have roughly 1 minute per question. So you have to be confident, and you have to be fast. And here is my absolute biggest warning for you today. CompTIA absolutely loves acronyms. Your exam is going to be a giant alphabet soup of them. But listen, knowing what VDI, IaaS, or PaaS actually stands for, that's not enough. You can't just recite them. You really have to understand where, when, and why they are used in real-world environments. You're going to be tested with scenario-based, performance-based questions, or PBQs, where you have to actually apply these concepts to fix a simulated IT problem. So context is everything. Which brings us to our final thought. As the entire IT landscape shifts away from local, physical hardware and pushes toward hybrid clouds, virtual desktops, and totally abstract infrastructure, the skills you are learning right here in Domain 4 will be your absolute foundation. So, as IT shifts toward AI terminals and hybrid setups, are you ready to troubleshoot the infrastructure of tomorrow? Keep reviewing these concepts, keep studying those scenarios, and you will absolutely crush this exam. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep up the great work.